Excuse me, but who are you? One would expect the inquirer to introduce himself first. Though you are clearly not British, so perhaps our ways are foreign to you. Oh, sorry, yes, we're from the Empire of Japan. We're studying here. Oh, yes, Japan. I've heard talk of the place. Its inhabitants live in some fiery brown-colored soup dressed up with exotic spices. You might be thinking of somewhere else. Oh, is that the theatrical gesticulation about? Perhaps. Anyway, if you are a gentleman, sir, you offer your own name first, before inquiring about the name of another. Of course, yes. I'm Ryanosuke Naruhodo. I'm a lawyer. Well, a student of law, really. My name is Susato Mikotoba. I am Mr. Naruhodo's assistant. I would not give this person the time of day if they're like, if you want to be a gentleman, I was like, fully on you. But I guess they wanted to get information out of him, so you have to go with it. I see. My name is Benedict. Yes. Eggert Benedict. So Eggs Benedict, basically. Enchante. He's so refined in how he holds himself and how he speaks, but his name is suspicious. Now, to the matter at hand. Right, it's kind of Icelandic. My overcoat. Return it at once to someone with the style to carry it off. Every move he makes, every breath he takes, I can't stand watching him. I think the police post-date this game by... Well, post-date when this game is supposed to be historically set by several decades. It's the only thing changed in the examine. Okay, I didn't check the other field, but... Did you have a look at her? That's strange. Where's my armband gone? What's the problem? Something wrong? Don't suppose. You're looking for this. Yes, but how and when and how again? I got a talent for it, Amata. Dive it. That's bordering on black magic. Take your socks off without taking your shoes off. And it makes what I was about to say about my armband seem a little dull. So, what do you want to tell me about it then? Give it back? Miss Lestrade is what the gentleman is saying. What do you think? It's all lies, ain't it? Obviously. I swear on my life I ain't never laid eyes on that dandy before. I mean, that could technically be true, it could still be his coat. Let's hear it now, you little ragamuffin. You stole it, didn't you? That ticket you brought in here just now. No, I swear it, I swear... Oh, I don't want to say that. It was barely an hour ago. I was walking along the street, minding my own business. When this little gutterling ran into me, I knew at once what had happened. I've been robbed yet again, I thought to myself. Those wretched pickpockets. Yet again? Oh yes, as you can see, I am a man of impeccable style. This isn't the first time that I've been targeted by these back-slum scoundrels. Now then, relinquish my overcoat. Duh. But she had the money to pay off the pawn too, which is kind of strange. It's like she didn't want the money, she wanted the coat. come along now, Miss Lestrade. Give the good gentleman his coat back. Maybe it's just if it's something to steal, she's going to steal it and use it for whatever it's supposed to be used, regardless of whether that makes any sense or not. If we're going to cause trouble, I shall have no choice but to call the police. Hold on, why does everyone think it's me? Just look at this dandy cove, and you think I'm the dodgy one. Sorry, but no one's going to believe you. Well, what about evidence? Yeah. Where's your evidence that I've stolen something, eh? Come on, let's see it. And Herlock Sholmes walked out, so he's not here to do his thing. Oh, I have evidence, naturally. You what? Evidence that the article Miss Lestrade redeemed actually belongs to this gentleman. Of course, we need only consult Mr. Windibank's ledger to know the truth. We'll be able to look up the name of the person who deposited the article in the first place. Yes, brilliant. I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. Oh? I never ask customers' names. That's a strict policy of mine. Then what's the point? But why not? Well now, as you can imagine, some of my customers have circumstances to consider. A great many of them prefer to maintain their anonymity. Yes, I see. But then how can you know if an article belongs to the person asking to redeem it? Oh, it's quite simple. Good sir. Might I trouble you for the watchword associated with the article in question? Of course, it's... Professor. Yes, that's right. And all the evidence we need. This gentleman is the rightful owner of the article, without doubt. A watchword? Interesting. So, about these watchwords, Mr. Windibank. As I just explained, I never ask customers' names when they deposit items with me. There are many reasons why. Certain customers would like to keep their activities secret. Oh yeah, he's here. Okay, so about to get a great deduction, in which we're going to turn everything upside down, essentially. That wasn't exactly a subtle glance at Mr. Sholmes now, was it? Great detectives have no dark secrets, not at all. Wait, isn't that the point? Yes, well, anyway, that's why I always ask for a watchword whenever I accept a new article. In many ways, it's like the secret combination of numbers used to unlock a vault. The date of deposit, a description, and a watchword uniquely identify each item. And of course, when I give the storage ticket to the customer, when someone comes to redeem something, I ask for the ticket and the watchword. But you did... Well, did you ask Miss Lestrade for the watchword? And if that someone tells you the correct watchword, you return the article? That's right, sir. Yes, just as soon as the requisite fee is paid. And I have supplied you with the information you require already, but for the avoidance of doubt, the article in question is an overcoat deposited 2 months ago on 15th February. With a watchword of Professor. All perfect correct information, sir. But how? Really, this is beyond a joke now. There is no further room for doubt. I mean, Gina is like wearing the coat, so the pawnbroker, forgot his name already, must have given it to her, so she must have provided the correct information. So let that be the end to the matter. I thank you for your custom, Mr. Eggert Benedict, sir. At such reasonable rates of interest, I may even decide to come back. This is why I hate grown-ups. Just because I'm a diver, everyone thinks that makes me a liar. And the contents of the coat pockets, if you please, broker. But of course, sir, here is the disc for you. Just this one? Pardon, sir? I was expecting another, that is, I deposited another. Another disc. Oh dear. I regret to inform you, sir, that what was deposited with me was merely the overcoat. The disc happened to be in one of the pockets, but I was completely unaware of it until now. So, Gutterling, you're hiding more of what's rightfully mine, are you? Who says I don't know nothing about it? Very well. Then I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style. Wait a minute. That disc is mine. What do you think you're doing, you little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal. Oh my, yes, there is blood on the disc. It's because of all those sharp little bumps. The man must have scratched his finger on them. I found it first, alright. I mean, it belonged to the old man. So you're not having it. Or you take it. Me? If I hang on to it, they'll have it off me again, so keep hold of it. Miss Lestrade, why is this disc so important to her? The music box disc has been entered into the court record. You there in the black livery. Hand the disc to me at once, please. No, don't. He's lying. Grown-ups are all liars. What do I do now? How am I going to resolve this? Mr. Windibank is clearly at a loss here. We have to do something about this before he reaches for that revolver of his. We're gonna go over to Sholmes, I presume, but we gotta go through these. Look at those piercing eyes. He's clearly in no mood to talk. We have to do something quickly before this mysterious gentleman leaves to fetch the police or something. Oh, Miss Lestrade is really looking daggers at that mysterious gentleman. We need to do something to calm things down before she loses control and attacks him again. Look at Mr. Windibank watching diligently over his shop. There are still so many things I'm curious about. But somehow I don't really feel like this is the right time to be browsing. Calming this fraught situation must be our first priority. And I'm fairly certain that we can find just the great thing we need among the articles here in the shop. Right. This is what's gonna do it. Mr. Sholmes, what are you examining with such keen interest there? Are you enjoying a bar of caramel, I see? So, you found me at last, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? After that young pickpocket sent me on my way, I was forced to lurk in the shadows. Cruelly ostracized as the rest of you partook in the jovial atmosphere of fellowship. I had nothing to occupy my mind, but was too ashamed to let society see what my downfall had done to me. So feigning mock interest, I pretended to examine the tedious trinkets in this desolate place. Whilst, as you shrewdly observed, gnawing on the only friend I have left, the 7% solution of caramel. Pray do you claim to understand the depths of my despair, Mr. Naruhodo, but how could you? I was so lonely, so desperately lonely. Then why on earth didn't you rejoin the conversation? Things have gone from bad to worse here, you know. Yes, I overheard much of your conversation. Or rather, in my craving for human contact, my ears devoured every word that was uttered. You really were sad, weren't you? Poor Mr. Sholmes, I feel simply awful for you. It would seem that my inferences are correct. Oh, surely you're not about to tell us that you solved the entire case once again. My dear madame, sometimes I wonder, were my genius for deduction to become commoditized, how much would I pawn it for? It seems Mr. Sholmes has had another of his flashes of inspiration. And who knows if it will help to resolve the situation between Mrs. Strayed and the mysterious gentleman. What's the right thing to do here? Oh, yes. Well, Miss Lestrade, it would appear you find yourself in something of a predicament. Where the blue blazes have you been, eh? Pardon? The lady's in trouble. A true gent's supposed to be there to help. Straight away. Not an hour later. Harsh. Pray tell, are you? Mr. Egbert Benedict? You have, in my eyes, a veritably encyclopedic array of curiosities about your person. Nevertheless, there are two immovable conclusions I have drawn. I'll beg your pardon. The first is this. The true reason for your visit to this pawnbrokery today is something you have not yet revealed. And the second is this. A considerable crime is in contemplation, one you will orchestrate with intent to steal a vast sum of money. Well, Mr. Benedict, what say you to my deductions? How? He's turned as white as a hard-boiled egg. It would seem that once again, Mr. Sholmes has made a flawless deduction. Well, quite flawed, but it's a mechanic. Just who do you think you are, sir? Ah, yes, as I hoped. That is precisely the pained expression I was looking for. So, shall we begin? The time has come for yet another Hairlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured into this pawnbrokery today. You claimed you have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. As revealed by what you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to the shop in the first place is the staff recruitment flyer. The piece of paper in your hand is a staff wanted advertisement for this very shop. So even the most unobservant would soon realize that a man of your appearance has no need for such employ. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane which you unwittingly clutch to your person exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot. I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak, of course, is the missing ferrule. I think the initials are wrong, but whatever. The end of any walking stick would be terminated with a metal ferrule to protect the wooden tip. Oh, ferrule. Sounds pronounced. And yet, detailed analysis shows the wooden tip of this stick to be utterly bare. Therefore, there's only one conclusion. The rod that you hold in your hand, which appears to be a walking cane, is in fact no cane at all. You recoil, sir, and something wrong. And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitated the answer to the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, that what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. From the moment I saw it, my suspicions were aroused. That walking cane demands such a stout handle, mused I. But of course, as I said, this is no walking cane. No, that rod is the broken handle of a shovel. What? Are you insane? And now, having determined this undeniable truth, the conclusion is clear. Your true motive for coming here was to take employment at this establishment in order to excavate the ground beneath the premises. What a calculated crime you have conceived, sir. A wickedly calculated crime. To tunnel underneath a pawnbrokery. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, intend to excavate the ground beneath this pawnbrokery with a broken shovel. What on earth do you suppose I can expect to find there? Some long-forgotten treasure, I suppose. Save for such a fanciful theory, what possible reason could I have to do as you say? Oh, but there is ample reason. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. You and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider what would motivate a man to infiltrate a shop such as this and covertly dig beneath its floor. The answer is revealed by the council notice in the counter of which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. The letter gives notice to public works to be carried out in the local area. And according to the enclosed plan of the upcoming sewerage works, beneath the shop runs a sewer that adjoins another one that runs under the bank on the opposite side of the road. The madness has entered the sewers now, has it? By excavating the ground beneath our feet, you will gain access to the waterway that flows in very close proximity to the great vault of the financial institution opposite. What are you? In summary, sir, you devised a master plan to pull off an elaborate bank robbery by dint of the underground tunnels. Master plan? Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. With what plunder did the thief hope to make off from the underground vault of the bank? Are you quite serious? Having consulted with Scotland Yard some days ago, I happen to know the answer. But naturally, the answer is no secret to you, is it, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting... that's happened a long time ago at this point, because a lot of things have been thrown off. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. Postcard for the Great Exhibition. I'm afraid you've quite lost me. Currently in the final stages of preparation, the Great Exhibition will soon be underway. And the government has provided extra funds to complete this masterpiece, the Crystal Tower. Funds that currently sit in the vault of the bank, on the other side of this road. Pardon? Yes, the considerable crime you have been contemplating is the theft of that which sits in the vault of that bank, the special reserve funds for the Great Exhibition. Of course, that is top secret police information, so keep it under your hat, please. Thus concludes Herlock Shelves' great deduction of this pawnbroking puzzle. Mr. Sholmes. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, an impressively upbeat deduction for a detective ranked with loneliness, would you not agree? Was it true what you said about the bank over the road and what is in its vault? Indeed, though few know of its existence, it is one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Gregson told me in the strictest confidence. But you just announced it to everyone here, rather loudly in fact. Ah, and if it's such a big secret, how would Mr. Benedict have come to find out about it? There can be but one explanation for that. Clearly it is because the man is a criminal. But what if he didn't know anything about the money in the vault? If he's a criminal, as you said, then buying a brand new shovel is sure to be the first thing he does, now that you've revealed the secret. Oh. Or if he doesn't, maybe Mr. Windibank will. He already has plenty of shovels here after all. Oh my life, I assure you I'm not so unscrupulous. Well, hopefully this has taught you a valuable lesson. Sensitive information must be handled with the utmost of care. One can never be sure what someone privy to secrets won't disclose them. Someone privy to secrets won't disclose them, and once the word is out, it's out. Perhaps I'll think twice before confiding in you next time, Mr. Sholmes. An excellent idea, Mr. Naruhodo. An excellent idea. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, you know what to do, I'm sure. Yes, let's listen to that great deduction again and see if we can massage it into shape. Very well then, let us start once more from the beginning. Of Herlock Sholmes' magnificent logic and reasoning spectacular. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured into this pawnbrokery today. I already read this stuff. So, by Mr. Sholmes' reasoning, Mr. Bandit came here in order to apply for a job so he could dig down through the floor. Yes, an attempt to tunnel into the sewers to gain access to the money in the vault of the bank across the road. But he wouldn't get very far with a broken shovel, would he? No, I think it's fair to say his motives lie elsewhere. The question is where? What did bring Mr. Benedict here at this particular point in time? At this particular point in time. That silk top hat is whiter than white. Only an English gentleman could hope to carry off something so bright. But it looks so incongruous with the black overcoat, don't you think? Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. The checkerboard fashion? How about it, Mr. Naruhodo? I think you'd look very fetching in a white top hat. Well, you know, I think it might look rather incongruous with my black university uniform, so... Probably not the answer. Anything else on the back? And then I just examine the cane just to get the dialogue. That's a proper English gentleman's cane, isn't it? Look at the beautifully polished brass on the handle. Yes, but Mr. Sholmes is right. It's not the sort of handle you usually see on a cane. Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. Perhaps you could adopt a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. It would rather suit you. I have a feeling it might argue with the sword around my waist. Okay. Now I'm gonna actually do the thing that's correct, I believe. Oh. Look at all the scribbled notes on the back of the flyer here. I don't believe it. What is it? Listen to what it says. Name, Gina Lestrade, height 5'2". Green cap, scuffy waistcoat, grubby white shirt, blue satchel, ragged. It's detailed description of Miss Lestrade, and we just kind of walk behind him and just read this while he's standing there. Goodness. There's even a sketch of her, hat and all. Although, if he showed it to her, she'd fire that smoke grenade launcher in his face for sure. And look, the details of the shop have been written down here too. Windibank's Pawnbrokery, Baker Street, redemption deadline 15th of April. Which is today's date. Why would Mr. Benedict have all that information scrawled on the back of that piece of paper?
Take that!
Yes, what brought you to the shop in the first place is the info about Miss Lestrade. Quite so, my dear fellow. It would appear that the writing on the sketch on the reverse side of the flyer pertains to the pickpocket Miss Lestrade and to Mr. Windibank's pawnbrokery here. Ah. You originally told us that you had merely given chase after Miss Lestrade, after Miss Lestrade stole the redemption ticket from you. But that, sir, is a thinly veiled lie. It is the information on the back of the flyer that led you here today. By which I mean, here to Windibank's pawnbrokery, and today the redemption deadline of that overcoat. So you wait outside for the young girl matching the description you have written down to arrive. And then you have gone to some lengths to hide the reason for your pursuit of Miss Lestrade. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutch to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot, I've had this cane for years. The contraption of which I speak, of course, is the missing ferrule. What's a ferrule? It's the metal cap commonly found at the end of a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, the bit that makes the nice clanking sound on the pavement? Yes, exactly, and Mr. Sholmes is right. It appears to be missing from this cane. But it doesn't actually look broken, does it? No, it doesn't, though the gentleman may certainly did recoil when Mr. Schultz identified the cane as suspicious. In other words, there is some secret about the cane that Mr. Benedict would rather we don't know. I'll just get the dialogue. The end of this cane is just bare wood. Yes, and according to Mr. Sholmes' deduction, this is where the shovel blade would have been attached. Couldn't it just be the tip fell off? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, but I couldn't possibly speculate. Yeah, that's not it at all. It's the letter, the initialing. Look here, Miss Susato. There are some letters on the handle. Ah yes, those must be initials, I think. In the West, it's customary for people to engrave their belongings with the first letter of their names. So Hairlock Sholmes would be HS, you mean? That's right. And the initials on this cane, obviously. Oh. AG. Why does it feel as though that's not quite right? Yep.
Take that!
Because he's EB, he's Eggs Benedict. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the initialing. Most astute observer, wouldn't you say, Mr. Eggert Benedict? We are led to believe, sir, that your initials are EB. Yet in a most possessive manner, you have in your grasp a cane bearing the initials AG. An incontrovertible contradiction indeed, would you not agree? No, you're wrong. This cane isn't... You said before that you'd had that cane for years. Grr. But don't try to tell us that you just borrowed it from a friend or found it in the park. In short, though you hold yourself to be a gentleman, you have withheld your true name. You recoil, sir, in something wrong? And you're recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer to the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Nope. Let's consider the bare bones of what's happened here. Miss Lestrade redeemed that fine-looking overcoat. And now a mysterious man has appeared, introducing himself with a fake name, and claiming that the overcoat belongs to him. But we know that he actually identified Miss Lestrade from a written description, which suggests that everything else he told us is untrue. So what we need to do here is somehow prove that the overcoat cannot possibly belong to him. Is it rather strange? Is it rather strange handle for sure? Yeah, it's certainly unusual for a gentleman's cane. You expect to see such a cane being twirled charmingly by its owner as he skips merrily down the street. You do? Ah, something has just occurred to me. We have a shovel back in our office, don't we? Yes, you're right, and its handle is exactly the same shape as this cane's. Here we go. Now I'm starting to wonder if it's not actually a cane at all, but a spade. Mr. Schultz's deductions are curiously compelling, aren't they? Oh, the seam on the shoulder there is coming apart, look. So it is. Do you know, a moment ago, Mr. Benedict was surprised by something that was said. I thought I heard him make a rather strange noise. It sounded a bit like a tiny growl. By now I think it's probably the sound of the seam ripping open. If you look closely, it does seem to be a very tight fit. The sleeves are stretched to bursting, and he wouldn't have a hope of fastening it at the front. If he were to turn around in it, I'm sure the whole thing would fall apart. That I'd like to see. Sorry? How can we make Mr. Benedict run around? She really is giving this some thought.
Take that!
Split seam, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Ah. Yes, because the overcoat is rather obviously a poor fit. Having forced it over your broad shoulders, the seam is already breaking apart. My suspicions were aroused from the outset. When you so badly lied about your name and so boldly waylaid this pickpocket. Ah. This catalog of untruths has all been for one very specific purpose. To steal the article that the young girl redeemed from Mr. Windibank. That was a very simple one. But what really irks me is this. The considerable crime I initially imagined has been considerably curtailed. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, designed a wheeze to filch some tawdry article of ponage. Have you forgotten that I redeemed the article in the proper manner using the watchword? Had I not been the one to deposit it in the first place? How could I possibly have known the relevant details? N'est-ce pas? Oh, but the watchword can be discovered. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider how one might come to learn a secret watchword relating to the pawned property of another. The method is revealed by the council notice on the counter of which eyes. The direction of the detection must change rather dramatically now, I think. Yes, no more talk about tunneling into the sewers. Which is a pity, because it all sounded rather exciting. Anyway, you can't deny that this mysterious gentleman did know the watchword. Yes, Professor. If you didn't know that word, Mr. Windibank would never allow you to redeem the article. Or looking at it another way, if you did know that word, Mr. Windibank would allow you to redeem the article, whether it was yours or not. So the question is, could this gentleman have found the watchword outside? Yeah, I just got it right out of the ledger. I'll just hit this just cuz. Baker Street Works in this title. Yes, and it does mention sewage works, as Mr. Schultz said. Oh. And specifically mentions that tonight's sale at the confectionery shop on the corner won't be affected. Case solving first, confectionery later, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, curse my overly expressive face. This isn't it, but I want to hear it. This looks to be quite an old lamp. It's obviously been well looked after, and there's oil in it, too. In other words, it's still in use. Yes, it would appear so. As far as how far it could relate to Mr. How could it be related to Mr. Benedict knowing the watchword for the pond article? I have no idea. That makes two of us. Look at this, Miss Susato. Ah, it appears to be a memo that Mr. Windibank has scribbled to himself. Let's see. What does it say? Oh, Professor. Mr. Windibank must make a note of the watchwords his customers give him right before their eyes. And it's alarmingly clear script as well. Not to me, it isn't. Oh dear, I don't know where to look. Who knows what other secrets I might see? I'm going to examine the gun just cuz. This is Mr. Windibank's gun. Yes, loaded with only one bullet, he said. It would appear that being a pawnbroker is a very life or death profession. That might just be this particular establishment. Okay, I'm gonna do it.
Take that!
The method is revealed by the notelet on the counter, to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. Yes, the broker here follows the same procedure whenever a customer comes to redeem an article. He asks the customer for the watchword and notes down the response uttered on a notelet he has it on hand. When he consults his ledger and confirms whether or not the watchword matches that of the article in question, I would expect nothing less of a diligent pawnbroker. But his diligence clearly has its disadvantages. What are you talking about? It is increasingly apparent that you were present in the shop before your accusation against Miss Lestrade. In all likelihood, you followed her inside and then observed her talking to Mr. Windibank. When the diligent broker made a note of the watchword, as his common practice, you observed him writing the word Professor on the notelet inside the ledger. That, sir, was the master plan you devised, steal a pawned article from young Miss Lestrade. Master plan? Which links us at last to the final chapter of the Steward scheme. Why would you go to such lengths to redeem that particular article from this pawnbroker? Are you quite serious? For an ill-fitting overcoat hardly seems to justify the effort, much less a worthless music box disc. But naturally, you had very good reason to make them yours, didn't you, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this particular postcard tells us all we need to know. The articles we're talking about are the overcoat and the music box discs that were in one of the pockets, which according to Mr. Windibank isn't even worth a penny. And yet this man went to such lengths to steal them. Why? I wonder if perhaps we already have the evidence we need to explain it, Mr. Naruhodo. Could we? Really? I'd better have a thorough look through all the evidence we've collected so far.
Take that!
Wait, I accidentally hit the present. I'm gonna lose health because I hit the wrong key by accident. I didn't mean to do this. Muscle memory issues. It won't let me, skip past the text scrolling. So I have to, Okay, you're supposed to examine it. There we go. Hit this. Look at all the little bumps on the disc. They're so tiny. Yes, the protrusions are called pins, and they pluck the teeth of the comb to make notes. And just on the edge, there's a small amount of blood. Yes, the blood of the mysterious Mr. Eggert Benedict. When Miss Lestrade tried to grab the disc from him, the pin scratched his fingers, it seems. Likely when you're grading some daikon radish and accidentally catch your finger. Ouch, just thinking about it hurts. And I've like grated cheese and cut my finger on the cheese grater while doing it before, several times. Because I hate grating cheese, and so I do it really aggressively and fast, try to get it done get it over with as fast as possible. Anyway. But I like to put cheese in my casseroles, to put cheese in the things I eat, so I, of course, grate the cheese. And it puts me off eating radish. Yeah, this is it right here. Oh, this little scrap of paper stuck to this reverse side of the disc, look. And a scribbled word or two. It looks like somebody's name. For McGilded. For McGilded. McGilded? It couldn't be. But it is, Mr. Naruhodo. A name I shall never forget for as long as I live. But why? Why is his name on this? Present these things? No, I can't. Okay. Now I present the music disc. You see, this music box disc tells us all we need to know. What's that on the back? It reads, for McGilded. Mr. Magnus McGilded. You unfortunate philanthropist who perished in curious circumstances at the Old Bailey 2 months ago. A prominent man in London, though his loan-mongering demonstrated a distinct lack of scruples. So, you're an associate of his, are you? Or perhaps a subordinate? Mr. McGilded was a man of unusually small stature, in fact. He was precisely the right size for that overcoat that you have squeezed yourself into. Your true identity remains shrouded in mystery, Mr. Edgar Benedict. But the final conclusion here is crystal clear. The reason you came to this pawnbrokery today was to retrieve an article left behind by the late Magnus McGilded. And McGilded gave this thing to Lestrade, apparently. Oh well, Mr. Magnus McGilded. Not a name I expected to hear in these circumstances. Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid there's something very troubling on my mind. Pray tell, Miss Susato. Well, according to what Mr. Winterbank told us earlier, today was the final day on which the coat could have been redeemed, was it not? Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Today would be precisely 2 months since it was first deposited. Well, today is April 15th. It is 15th of April, so 2 months ago today would have been 15th of February, sir. That's right. It's all carefully recorded in my ledger. Deposited at 10:30 p.m., I see. What? But that suggests... Yes, 15th of February. It's precisely the day on which the omnibus murder took place. And 10:30 in the evening is precisely the time at which the terrible events were unfolding. Suggestive is not the word. It would seem the matter is entirely beyond coincidence. You are, of course, at liberty to make whatever outlandish deductions you choose, however. I must insist you hand over the music box disc now. It would be a terrible shame for you to return to your native land in a box. What do I do? No, don't hand over the disc. There are some things a man must protect at all costs. This may well be one of those things. Then again, it may not. Mr. Winterbank? This is my shop. I can't allow any harm to come to my customers. If that were to happen, I should have to take my own life. Wow, you are so useless. Mr. Winterbank, no. Alright, that's enough. Inspector Gregson. Inspector? That's right, Sunshine. The alarm was raised on one of our dedicated emergency lines. So we got here as fast as we could. Now, what's all this about, eh? Oh, praise be. You're here at last. I was moments away from forfeiting my own life in my very own establishment. It would seem you had the upper hand. Right, you got a lot of explaining to do. I don't appreciate being bothered with some petty, angry bargery. Petty? Mr. Windibank very nearly met his end. Yeah, by his own gun, as far as I can tell. Oh dear. And the whole of Britain could meet its end if I don't get to the bottom of the case I'm supposed to be working on. What on earth is the case, Inspector? Spare no detail, Gregson. I might have said a little too much. No matter, it's nothing to do with you lot. Anyway, sir, you're gonna have to come with me down to the station. But of course, Inspector. Ah, he's getting away. Get after him, lads. Whistle the beat, officer. Sir. There's been a spate of thefts at pawn shops around here recently, so we fitted emergency buttons underneath the counters for brokers to let us know when there's trouble. Oh, Inspector, I was very worried there for a while. Very worried indeed. Now then, Mr. Permanently in Mourning. Oh, yes. I'll be taking that whatever it is of McGilded's down to the yard. Thank you very much. So hand it over. Oh, yes, of course. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is. Mine. I'm sorry, miss. But anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now. As evidence? If the police demand something as evidence, my dear fellow, we have no choice but to capitulate. It's all yours, Inspector. Err. So, we had handed Mr. McGillis' disc over to Inspector Gregson, and were summarily turfed out of the shop and onto the street. I'm actually going to overwrite this one. And I'm going to exit.